please subscribe and click the hype and like button to get more content like this. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. Everything demonstrated in this video is strictly for educational purposes, to show you how to protect yourself. All demonstrations are performed in a controlled lab environment on our own testing devices. We never target real users, and using this knowledge to gain unauthorized access to actual people or systems is strictly illegal and unethical.
In this video, we're going to look at gathering information using the Harvester tool. The Harvester tool can be run on a variety of different platforms. For example, it comes pre-installed with Kali Linux. You can run it in a Python virtual env or a Docker container. You can build it from source, or in our case, we're going to be running it and installing it on an Ubuntu Linux system. And in this case, we're going to be using WSL because we're working on a Windows system. So to get started, open up a Windows PowerShell terminal on a system with WSL installed and run the command Ubuntu. Now we're working inside of an Ubuntu system in WSL. Now, the first thing we need to do is clone the Harvester repository. We can do that with the command git clone, followed by the URL to the repository, which in this case is github.com/laramies/theharvester.git. Next, we'll change directory into the newly cloned repository with the command cd theHarvester. Next, we need to make sure that we have Python installed on our system, and we can do that with the command sudo apt install python 3. And in this case, Python is already installed, and for most Linux distributions this is going to be the case. Next, we need to make sure that we have all of the requirements needed by the Harvester to run in Python. To do that, we can use the command sudo apt install python 3-pip. Once that's installed, we can use the command pip3 install -r requirements.txt to install all of the necessary packages for the Harvester tool. Once this completes, we should have all the necessary modules and packages installed to run the tool. Now that we have all of the requirements installed, we can start to use the Harvester tool. To do that, we use the command python 3 /theharvester.py. And because we didn't pass it any options, it outputs the usages that we could have done with it. So below the header, we see a usage description for the harvester.py along with all of the different flags that we could pass to it. The first flag is the -h flag, which will give us help output for using the tool. So let's try that first. If we use the same python 3 theharvester.py command and pass it the -h flag, we can see that it outputs a help output for us. It gives us a brief description of what the Harvester tool does, and the Harvester is used to gather open source intelligence or OSINT on a company or domain. Once again, we have the usage above that, and below it we have options showing us all the flags and descriptions of what those flags do that we could pass to the command. So the first one is the one we just used, -h or --help, and that shows this help message and exits. And then we have a variety of other options. Let's start with the -d, -l, and -b commands. The -d command is where we pass a domain that we want to search. So this would be the company name or domain name to search. Then the -l command is our limit, limiting the number of search results, and the default is 500. Then the -b command specifies the source that we want to try and do this search from. So we have a variety of different options listed in the description, and we're going to be using Bing as our source. So we start with the same base command of python 3 theharvester.py, then we pass it -d, and we'll search kali.org. Then we pass it -l, and we're going to limit our search results to 200. And then we pass it -b, and specify Bing as our source. And in this case, we have no information found. Now, there could be two reasons for this. One, there could be no resources found in the Bing data source, or it could be that we didn't specify an API keys.yaml. We can see that it created a default API keys.yaml, but you may need to create your own API keys in order to properly interact with a source. However, this is how we can go about doing a domain search and gathering information using the harvester. We could try a different source by changing -b Bing to -b census. And in this case, we can see explicitly that we're missing API keys for census. So we know that this is not going to work because we need API keys for these tools. Let's try another source of DNS dumpster. And here we can see that we actually do have some results. So scrolling up, we found through DNS dumpster no IPs, no emails, but we did find 62 hosts. And then we get a list of all the hosts that we found. So this can be a very useful tool for searching through and digging into domain information on a penetration testing target. To finish off, let's quickly look back at the help command and see some of the other options that we can use with this tool. So we've seen how to use the -h, -d, -l, and -b flags, but we do have some other options. For example, the -s flag would use Shodan to query discovered hosts. So we can go even further. For example, after we found this list of hosts, pass the -s flag and use Shodan to get more information. We could use the -p flag to specify proxies for requests. If we want to start with a specific result number, for example when querying with Shodan, we could start with the result number x, meaning we don't have to query every single result. If we have a -l of 200 and a -s of 150, then we could start at 150. We could take screenshots using the --screenshot command. If we want to search for virtual hosts, we can do that with the -v command. We can specify specific DNS servers to use for lookups with the -e flag. Takeovers can be found with the -t flag. We can resolve DNSs with -r. We can do DNS lookups with -n. And we can perform DNS brute forces on domains with -c. And if we want to save our output to a specific file, we can do that with the -f flag.